Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of HFS Unfiltered. And my name is Saurabh, and I'll be your host today. We recently released a research that we did in partnership with EY, where we reached out to a number of enterprise executives across the globe, and we found that about 70% of them look at cloud as a very strategic initiative. But what was quite eye-opening was that only about 30% of them said that they're getting the benefits that they envisaged from cloud. And I think I've got two gentlemen who can help me unpack this a little better, uh, because I think it's quite shocking and quite eye-opening at the same time. But I wanted to dig deeper into this in today's video cast. So Raghu and Tom, I think I couldn't have chosen two better people to ask some tough questions. If you don't mind introducing yourself to our audience, Raghu, if do you want to go first?
Absolutely, Sarah and Tom, HFS, thanks for having me here. My name is Ragu Rajaram. I'm a cloud enthusiast. I am part of EY. I'm a partner with EY. I've been working with EY for the last 12 plus years now, and I lead cloud consulting for EY. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Ragu. Delighted to have you on. Tom Reuner. I lead our IT service practice, and most of my times are trying to figure out the topic at hand: cloud native transformation. What does it mean? What it doesn't mean to organization, all the way to quality assurance, quality engineering, all too often forgotten. But today I'm delighted to discuss exactly that: cloud native transformation. Zora?
Yeah, so I think I wanted to start with you, Raghu. Are you experiencing the same on the field as you're dealing with clients day in and day out, that only a third are or very few are getting the benefits that they envisaged out of cloud? And what are you hearing in the market, right? Why is this? If yes, why is that happening?
It's very pertinent, Sarah. It's very true. It's a very similar message that we are getting working with our clients day in day out. Uh, there are several reasons for this, but by the way, compared to what it was before to what it is now, we've seen significant progress. So one, it's definitely has become a boardroom discussion. Certain things that we wanted to always get it across, I think the progress is made. So I'm not going to completely discount that nothing, right? But there is certainly a huge progress made. But regardless of that, there are some significant challenges that's ahead of us, right, and our clients, in front of our clients as well. And as you stated it correctly, there are a number of things. One is fundamentally there is there's a lot of conversations, but there's very less action in terms of like strategizing for it forever, analyzing it forever. But there are quick experimentation based action needs to happen, which we see a little bit of a lag, inertia, tremendous amount of time spent in business buy-in with the legacy apps that needs to be migrated into the cloud. A lot of debates and discussions in terms of like, hey, is this a disposition or is it a modernization, right? So a lot of time spent even before a single workload actually gets into cloud. Yes, absolutely, strategy is critical, planning is extremely critical, but they need to think about it in an agile fashion, right? So that is one which we see a tremendous amount of inertia that's felt on the ground. And poor planning also causes a lot of pain in the overall process, the tech strategy and the business transformation. And what we are also seeing is essentially it's still thought as part of the organization thinks that, hey, this is just an update to your technology strategy. There's nothing as a business I'm gaining out of it. So why should I be part of this, right? Or how do what do you guys expect out of this, and how can I be on board part of this, right? So still seen as a technology exercise rather than a business exercise, or there's a business value outcome discussion, right? So that's something that prolongs that conversation. And even if those guys who actually adopt and move forward, now comes the 30 percentage, or probably the half of that, not the 30 percentage which saw the benefits, but let's say like half of them actually progress towards cloud. There is tremendous amount of mistakes being made along the way, right? In right from the tech stack discussions, because today Every single architecture decision and engineering decision has a cost consequence in cloud, particularly based because it's OpEx. So there's a lot of loss in terms of, and loss which doesn't have a lot of causality, and we can't trace out the causality, right? It happens over a period of time. So that's something that folks are really worried about. Even if they cross that bridge, then it comes adoption. Majority of the deals that we see as we speak with the hyperscalers are signed based on consumption, consumption based discounts. But what's happening on the field is the adoption is not happening. So the companies at the CIO level are risking a whole lot in terms of like when they sign some significant large contracts. Then comes like you're stepping into some easy workloads and stuff, and then you get into mainframe space assets and tough workloads where understanding of what exists doesn't, it's not transparent.
So there's a lot to untangle there, Raghu, and I think Tom, you've been talking about we should talk less about cloud migration and talk about cloud native transformation. As you hear what Raghu was saying, help us understand what you mean by cloud native. What's the difference?
No, and I think Raghu made great points. I think fundamentally, I think if you boil it down to the basics, I think where organizations struggle is to align technology with business objectives. But actually, with the latter, so the business objectives, they're often led to their own devices. I don't think this applies. They have done a good job explaining what the future state for your organization, what you're working towards. And then if you go the next step, cloud should be about working differently. With that, we are literally around the target operating model. And one of the organizations we interviewed for that study, ITV and Matt O'Shea, who heads up the technology division, he phrased it quite aptly. He said, the real value of cloud only is being realized when you transform operating model. So think about things like agile, other methodologies purely from an IT point of view, but then also going the next step if you have a higher risk appetite, all the way to looking for new some of sources of revenue, even going all the way up to different kind of business models. But if you don't articulate what that is, many organizations will continue to struggle. So it has to come back to aligning technology with business objectives, but organizations need more help on that, Saurabh.
And so, Raghu, back to you. How are you helping organizations, right, as EY? Because I think one of the differences that I see, at least outside in, uh, between sort of EY and a system integrator is EY should bring in both business and technology perspective, right? You're just not a system integrator, but how are you addressing this? That both you and Tom have been articulating this sort of technology and business divide in driving cloud transformation.
Exactly. So it is one, we are starting with the brand and the name, right? We are calling this as a cloud driven business transformation. And we were very clear in terms of not calling this as a technology transformation in any organization. When we are embarking on these programs, we've been very crystal clear with all the levels about it's a cloud driven business transformation. And Tom touched on it, which is we are aligning the business objectives with the technology advancements. So every single technology advancement, and we call that as a golden thread. So every technology advancement has a business value and it has a customer value, and we tie them together in a thread called golden thread. So every single thing that you do on the technology need to be aligned with the business outcome, and that business outcome need to have a customer outcome. When I say customer outcome, the end customer outcome, then there are business and the financial outcome, and then that then lines up to the technology outcome, right? So these three, we are keeping it strictly close to each other, and we call that as a golden thread. And we also working with architecture organizations of these large firms in adopting cloud native. When I say cloud native, it's more about embracing an end-to-end service-led business architecture, right, which is powered by the technology enablement. So think about this broadly as parts and pieces of a broader outcome, which is broken into chunks, which we can group together and choreograph the choreograph the outcome that we want to achieve. Right, that's the way that we are approaching towards this. Right, and um, and as I said before, like it's we are also thinking in terms of like, how do we move from continue to debate about things but actually step into action, right? And more of a from a traditionally what folks used to call the cloud first strategy to much more a right cloud or a smart cloud strategy, right? With a well defined strategy in place, an integrated approach that touches every parts of the organization. And Tom said it very well, which is, hey, that to be successful in a cloud journey, in a transformation journey, you need to have a cross functional team. And this cross functional team, all of them have to be aware of it and need to be trained well enough to for us to make any advancement. So it's all about creating that building blocks of composable architecture which can be brought together to get that outcome, right? So, and that needs to happen on a consistent basis. And the pace of developing an organizational talent also needs to be aligned to that. And we need to continue to nurture that continuous learning exercise within this organization, because the way I see it is, our hyperscalers are moving really fast. It's like, if you can't stand on a treadmill, you got to be at the same pace the treadmill is actually moving. If the clients are not able to keep up to that treadmill, they're going to slip and fall. And our responsibility as the partners for our clients in helping them keep that pace, right? So that's the way I would put it. So
Yeah. So no, that I really like both the golden thread and the treadmill examples, Raghu, because I think that drives home the point. But Tom, I think yes, it's disappointing that only a third of the people or enterprises are getting value. But you know, there is a third who is getting value. What are, as you were doing this research, some of the points that Raghu was making, does that resonate with the research that you were doing? What were these people doing differently than the majority of the other organizations that led them to believe that, we are achieving something?
No, thanks, Saurabh and Raghu made a lot of great points. I think that fundamentally, I think we have to drive the discussion. Cloud has to become a business discussion. With that, I think the key point is to drive and enable stakeholder management within organization. But that's, Raghu alluded to it, that's almost about change management. That's a hard bit. How do you drive a culture in general, especially than our IT and or business, two different cultures and worlds are colliding. It's easy to say, it's just about alignment, but to drive that change, that's so hard and difficult. But then I think we are back to almost Tom of trying to, and it's counterintuitive because already, I think what we said might be quite negative about certain aspect, but we're seeing the majority of cloud transformation already funded by the business. So there's progress, as Raghu alluded to it. But then again, the final project often is about change management and that clarity, often the lack of clarity of the business objectives of the target operating model. And here we need more than at times. We're just doing research on industry cloud. Could industry cloud be almost a pre-configured operating model? But then life is more complicated. So if anything, we need more. We have to reframe much of the cloud discussion. And that's, I think, where with this research, we put the foundation in, but we have to go deeper. So we look forward to more collaboration with EY on that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Raghu. I think there is a very interesting relationship between cloud and Gen AI. You cannot do Gen AI without cloud, but what is but can Gen AI help you in a lot of these cloud transformations? Is that where are you on this whole, the impact of Gen AI on cloud and the impact of cloud on Gen AI conversation?
yeah, yeah, it's a very relevant conversation that is. In fact, I'm a little jealous of Gen AI because prior to Gen AI, the conversation was always cloud guys. Okay, now cloud is cloud is moved aside. They're like, okay, cloud, your cloud, just move aside a little bit. Let me talk to this Gen AI guy. You can't see it the way. Gen AI, the opportunity for us in Gen AI, which is awesome where we are, and it is not a hype, and it's already showing value for a number of our clients, but they're still scratching the surface, and I'll tell you why. But Gen AI cloud provides an incredible, significant computing power and wealth of data when if you want Gen AI models to work well and make some smarter decisions, right? So that's where it really helps. It provides them the flexibility and the speed to experiment with the new products. There's another aspect of it. I would just say it's that hidden ASR that can give the business a very competitive edge, particularly right in the using the power of cloud. Now, while that's happening, a lot of actual stuff where cloud is promoting Gen AI is fundamentally in terms of automating tasks, enhancing the security, optimizing the workloads, and creating some tailored content, right? And it's becoming the backbone, and it was a backbone of many of those enterprises as cloud for enterprises. But still, from Gen AI, it's like complementary, significantly complementary in terms of like how you can take it to the next level, right? So that's what we are finding. But still, what we are finding is just as in cloud, while discussing about the cloud as being, are we using cloud native technologies? Are we still talking about lift and shift and stuff? Even in Gen AI today, we are scratching the surface around optimizing, improving our SDLC lifecycle processes. This is where majority of the clients are and experimenting it. Some of the product companies and software companies have really taken advantage of it. There we can see some good results, but very large firms, let's say financial services firms or health firms or retailers, they're still on how can I Gen AI help me in this, and they're experimenting through it, but it's still in that stage of how can I improve my developer productivity, how can I test some new use cases. That's where we are. So cloud helps a lot in any of these Gen AI conversation and is very real, but we are still yet to see the full power of Gen AI with the majority of the clients. And I think prior to the Gen AI coming, the cloud was slowing down because of the market conditions. With Gen AI coming in, I could see a whole lot of cloud consumption right now. Right, it's back to track.
Yeah. So huge potential, but still early days and too early to celebrate success. Hey, I know we're running out of time, and this has been a fascinating conversation, but I didn't want to let both of you go without asking this question, and maybe Tom, I'll start with you first. If there was one wish that you had that could come true, and I'm not talking about a personal wish, let's talk about cloud and related stuff. Uh, what would that be?
I think close to my heart, and it's just building on the whole conversation we had. I think we need a realistic sense where we are. Don't know if we convey what we're seeing in the market, we're not being negative. We're trying to play it back. Don't know both best practices, good things we've seen, but also where things don't work. And we need more honesty and just building what Raghu said. While there's a lot of excitement and hope for Gen AI, we have to acknowledge we haven't even figured cloud out. And progressing with Gen AI is cloud, data, and AI. So cut a long-winded answer short, a sense more realism, because only with realism we really can help organization on the transformation to finally move the transformation needle. Raghu?
Yeah. No, I would. Yes, Sarah, like, I would like to stress this point, right? If there is one thing that we have to choose, and that would have the biggest impact in what we want to really achieve from outcomes in cloud for clients, right? Primarily, it's about I wish the organizations really see the value and just transform the business technology operating model. I call that specifically not just tech operating model or the business operating model, business technology operating model. And we did a research as EY, like a human center research, and that indicated that the organizations need to move beyond the traditional operating models that they have traditionally done into experimentation based or adopting a product and agile product business technology operating model, right? This results, and it's proven that like it give you tremendous amount of success in their transformation. So I wish everybody think it in terms of not a large monolithic transformations, but break it down in chunks in terms of thinking in a much more agile fashion and much more product centric thinking or business technology operating model.
Yeah, no, this has been fantastic. Thank you both for taking out time. I think I learned a lot, right? I think my takeaway is that there are a huge amount of challenges facing our enterprises. It's not just we keep talking about the technology debt, but what this conversation made me realize that there is a technology debt for sure, but there are other debts that we're dealing with. There's a skills debt that Raghu, you pointed out. There's a process debt or a business debt, right, in terms of how we are managing our processes. There's a data debt, and there's probably a cultural debt, right, as well. And we have to solve through all of them. And to Raghu's point, it's going to be very hard to think that we can solve all of these problems in one go. We have to keep experimenting, keep at it in small incremental steps, and keep showing progress. But it's been a fascinating conversation. I hope people who are tuning in learned something from it. At least I did. And I would shamelessly plug our research as well. Go and read our research. I think it's fascinating. It starts with that eye-popping number of only a third are realizing the value, but I think there's some good lessons on. It's not just a technology conversation. So thanks everyone. Thanks Raghu. Thanks Tom for sharing your insights. This was great.
Anytime.
Super.
Done.